Hello everyone, welcome back to week number 4 of Season 2 Quake Pro League. And up next, we're going to stay in the Americas for a bit, and it's going to be DaHanG and dooi going head-to-head.
Absolutely, and as we were talking about earlier, this should be a pretty spicy matchup because last time these two went head-to-head, it was actually dooi came out on top back in Stage 4 of Season 1, and he took the win 2-1. So DaHanG, clearly this is a player who knows, or at least is able to beat him when it comes down to it.
Now, I'm starting to see in the lobby, before we even get into the picks and bans, some interesting champions, as we always do get with dooi, so I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, dooi, a player that took a little bit of a break away from Quake for a little bit and came back, kind of had to relearn things a little bit. It was a different realm than when he had his kind of short little break away, having to reintroduce himself to the time limit duel and how he would have to play things a little bit differently to the way he used to. And over the course of him now getting comfortable with the way the game is, we have started to see a little bit more variety in his game. When you used to talk about dooi, we'd talk about the absolute slowest of the slow player, but now it really isn't just that on its own. There is other elements to it, depending on champions and maps, whatever it might be. DaHanG, a player that is a lot more of the complete package and has been for many, many years. He's one of the most consistent competitors we've had in Quake Champions across any of the game modes. He is an innovator in his own right. I can see the Strog in the lobby. See if we'll get some of that as we go into picks and bans, but I just think it's definitely a clash of two players that definitely don't play the same way, Flea.
Oh, absolutely not. As you mentioned, DaHanG is a very complete player. dooi, I've been talking to him a bit, outside of the game, and he's really been working on his game as well. He's trying to improve some of the fundamentals, really bring himself up to that higher level, knowing that we've got an entire year of competitive Quake ahead of us. So the man is very driven to make his mark, and we've seen tremendous plays come out of him, taking maps and games from some of the absolute best players in the world just by using that unique style of his. No one else really is capable of just leaving it to a one-frag game. You've got others, say on the European side, you've got players like Base, right, who are comfortable playing that runaway game for the final few minutes if they have one frag of a lead and they've got an advantage. But dooi is one of the very few who will actively just play a match with that idea in mind, going into it with that strategy from the very beginning.
So on that note, I guess we'll check out the picks and bans. I think the first map here, with us being set up and ready to go, is going to be Molten Falls with the Scalebearer versus Strog. Now that's what I was super curious about, and I'm always looking forward to seeing dooi's Scalebearer. Awoken, the map after that, with the Ranger and the Doomslayer, and then finally Blood Covenant Anarchy versus Nyx. So we're starting off with Molten. We'll see how DaHanG's really able to bring it. As you can see, Tower of Koth and Deep Embrace were removed again. Like I said, I think that's going to be quite a common occurrence for the first few weeks of this being in the current rotation.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of players who aren't quite comfortable playing on the new maps just yet, and they know that, well, maybe their opponent is. Maybe their opponent does have an edge of them, a bit of an advantage when it comes to that, so rather safe than sorry, and they're going to start removing those, as is once again the case in this match. So Molten Falls, Scalebearer going up against the Strog, quite a bit of mobility for both players. We know that dooi loves the scale, so we're expecting great things to come out of him there. Then on Awoken, again, we're going to see the Doomslayer being used by DaHanG, great mobility, the double jump, the verticality, whereas dooi has got the burst damage and also just that long distance mobility by using the orb. And then to wrap up the series, it'll be Blood Covenant, the map we just saw before this. Two light champions, two fast mobile ones. We've got Anarchy by dooi going up against Nyx, played by DaHanG.
So, if I were to talk about predictions here, which way do you think it would go?
I mean, I think you'd be a madman almost to vote against DaHanG. Just his track record is one that is much more consistent than dooi. If we just look at just stage 1 alone, this stage, dooi has lost both of his matches against Saigip and Chain. Yes, these are tremendously strong players, both really vying for the number 3 spot in NA, but DaHanG is still a step above that. DaHanG hasn't lost once this entire stage, so clearly the man is going into this one as the favorite, so I'm going to think that DaHanG will take this one.
I'd definitely be inclined to agree with you. I do think it has a chance of being a 2-1, but I do think that DaHanG has a bit more of a consistent record, especially right now, as you quite rightly said. Don't want to regurgitate your information, but as we're loading into our map, I do believe we're now got both players in here, so we should be starting very, very soon indeed. Warm-up's coming to a close, and we're going to see the dooi versus DaHanG, Strog, and Scalebearer.
This should indeed be an interesting one as we are kicking things off. First map of the series, we are in the perspective of Nemesis dooi. Immediately running that scale bearer. Don't have to strafe jump, you can build that speed by just moving and you turn your body into a huge projectile of its own. Now DaHanG caught in a bad position, dooi. Not charging in just yet, I was expecting him to just go for it, knowing that DaHanG doesn't have that many weapons to work with yet. I was expecting just a full-on bull rush into the super shotgun for the frag. Even if you end up taking a rocket or some LG, you should be fine. But dooi, as we mentioned before going into this, he is a passive player. He enjoys playing it safe and engaging only on the terms that he deems suitable.
I can only assume that dooi didn't use the bull rush there because of just where DaHanG was standing. You know, you had the jump pad, and it would have been very easy, I think, for DaHanG to just sit and listen for the bull rush and then just use the jump pad kind of on reaction. And then if dooi stuck down there, then, you know, DaHanG gets away or whatever it might be. Saving it for a bit of later use, perhaps. But, man, look at that armor. The strength of Scale Bearer right there. Chunky boy.
Nearly 200 points of armor to his name, and he's gonna get the Mega as well. DaHanG, what do you do against this? Railgun, of course, is the prime choice. Want to land some of that distance, instant damage. So far it's dooi. Using the tribal, it's very effective, bit of an underrated weapon. Good play from DaHanG though. Bouncing himself backwards, rails. Yeah. Both players missing a lot of rail damage right there. Given how aggressive DaHanG was, just jumping into the peeker and then just going for that bounce back, I would have expected something to happen there, a first frag, but nope, rails won't connect. Dewey's rockets from above will though, and DaHanG forced to retreat, restack for the time being.
Both players being nice and respectful so far. No one really having an opportunity to push in too heavily at the moment. Always looking up for those opening rails. dooi hitting one. If that second one went in. Oh, the block! The block! Oh, the Pika. Pika versus Bull Rush.
I mean, you can understand why dooi went for that, because the moment that you can still kind of see your opponent as the Stroke sitting there in the corner of your eye, it's like you want to punish that. You want to make him bleed for being so bold and challenging you like that, but still, DaHanG just blocking that bull rush with the peeker. And then some good damage to finish it off, and now it is dooi trailing behind, but got a pretty good spawn, secures himself the Mega. Heavy should be going his way as well. He's got all of the major weapons to work with as well, so definitely not in a bad spot to start tying things up.
Now from this position, dooi working on a gigantic stack, and DaHanG well aware that he's going to have to chip it down before he can really make anything happen here. But mobility versus mobility, you know, we have the more obvious crouch slide and speed of the Strog, and then you look at Scale Bearer where he can be a lot more agile than you would expect for a large champion. But as long as DaHanG's able to at least just keep this range established, but more importantly, really try and hit those rails that dooi can't return. Because if dooi, if he catches an inch of being able to push in with this stack, you know he's going to do it.
Oh yeah. And so DaHanG playing a very reactionary game right now. Sitting on top of that railgun, knowing that that's an area where he's got a lot of escape routes set already, and where dooi will have to push through a choke point, whether he comes from the top or the bottom or the bounce pad. DaHanG will be able to hold him back, do a decent amount of damage to DaHanG. Playing it safe. And dooi, this has to be a bit frustrating. You've got that stack advantage, but you know that the longer you wait, doesn't matter how stacked you are, the longer you wait, the more opportunities you give your opponent to somehow turn things around. So dooi doesn't want to waste any time right now.
Of all the matches that you know has a likelihood of going to barely any frags, this kind of just has to be the one. Not necessarily because of the players involved, but more the fact that DaHanG has to be so careful. But dooi, the couple of opportunities he tried to go in for a bull rush, DaHanG kind of had a counterplay to it immediately. And dooi will remember that. Just because it's an attractive option to bull rush doesn't necessarily mean DaHanG wasn't expecting it. And that's quite a message to send. But speaking of which, there's that immediate The ability Dewey's able to just turn around. He's in position for this heavy, but he's kept control over these items for the entire map. It seems like DaHanG is quite happy to concede it. Look at the control. 8 heavies, 7 megas, and then DaHanG, 2 heavies and 3 megas.
And still DaHanG, 300 points of damage over his opponent, 900 versus 600. So still Dewey trailing. This is the kind of one frag game that Dewey likes, but I don't think he's enjoying this one very much. He wants it to be in his favor, of course, but unable to really make that happen. And every single time he makes an appearance like this, it's actually DaHanG who does most of the damage for just slipping away into the night and disappearing from the scene completely. Oh, there we go. That's a nice little stop. Dewey pushed back, and it's DaHanG landing the shot. And that's exactly what I was talking about, Ketchup. The longer you just sit with that huge stack but can't catch your opponent, the more opportunities you're actually giving them to do something like that. Out of nowhere, DaHanG just waiting, doing a lot of damage, but Dewey instantly bull rushed into the wall, super shotgun, tie things off, beautiful.
But we saw completely crystal clear why DaHanG was putting so much emphasis on being far away. The second DaHanG was close range, Dewey had just spawned, and he was able to just pick up that super shotgun, full rush, bam, jobs are good and done. So DaHanG, oh.
One of the reasons why DaHanG is just considered to be probably the single best Strog player in the world. Just those moves, just dipping out of the battle instantly. Out comes the peeker, decent amount of damage. Your opponent is distracted, takes down the peeker. You loop back around with a railgun, get yourself the frag.
Oh!
DaHanG,
kill.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
I think DaHanG just clutching the wall, hoping that Dewey would slip on by when he suddenly stopped moving backwards, but Dewey isn't going to be foiled by something like that. One frag of a lead for DaHanG as we enter the 7-minute mark.
Dewey is going to have to sort of up the ante just a little bit here. He is able to play methodical, and I like the fact that he hasn't been pushing too hard. He knows, I mean, being able to play a game where it goes to, you know, maybe 1 or 2 frags, mostly 1 in Dewey's case sometimes, but it's this idea of knowing you've got 10 minutes on the clock. If you only need 1 frag, it's always enough time. And Dewey plays with the comfort of that. As you can clearly see, he's not being crazy aggressive. He's not pushing too hard. You know, you would think in this situation, look at the stack difference, and a lot of players would probably panic in this situation. What? 100 damage into ring out. I mean, we've seen a lot of ring outs today, but that's got to be the most impressive.
Oh my goodness, how did that even happen? DaHanG not going to be happy with that one. But Dewey, he's going to be rejoicing. That is exactly what he needed to get back into this game. But of course, DaHanG, he is a veteran, a legend of the scene. The man has countless of hours playing at the highest level of Quake. He is not going to let this tilt him. He is going to...
I'm pretty sure I know what emote is being spammed in chat right about now. Oh, the combos again! The scale bearer. The second he's in position. This is why this champion fits Dewey like a glove. I mean, you can play reserved, careful, and patient, and all it takes is that one moment for a fight where you've got stack, you've got the right weapon, and he just deletes.
I also just absolutely love the contrast. You've got DaHanG, who refuses to zoom in at any point with any weapon, no matter if it's the railgun on the other side of the map. And then you've got Dewey, who zooms in with the shotgun at point-blank range. It works for him, so why not do it? Good rail, DaHanG. Dropping down, looking for an angle, gets one, but it is Dewey who makes the most of it. And now 1 minute left, DaHanG. He's got to be careful. Oh no, the suicide!
Yeah, that was either going to be a -1 for DaHanG or a +1 for Dewey. Sealed the deal right there.
Good call from Dewey, just to hold his own right there. Hold his ground, letting DaHanG come to him. DaHanG barreling around the corner. Shotgun misses. DaHanG still has a super good opportunity right here. Half a minute left. 1 frag. Very possible.
Dewey's objective here, make sure you've got this SSG, the bull rush is ready, get that stack as high as you can possibly get it. But right now, he actually doesn't even opt to get the armor. He doesn't want to waste any of that time that DaHanG could use to catch him. And now the chase is on. Question is, can he catch him? 10 seconds to go, but the ball rush is ready. I mean, I'm not particularly confident because he has ball rush. The damage reduction might be too severe. And that's it. Game over.
Won't find him. dooi outmaneuvered his opponent in those final few seconds of the game. DaHanG unable to catch a glimpse of him, even won't lock down his location, and that is dooi actually securing the first map. And look at him, the cowboy, the resident cowboy of the Quake Pro League, starting off on a high note.
Just, you get to see a perfect example. That whole map was a perfect demonstration of doooi's game plan, where he wasn't really hiding as much. He was just playing an extremely careful game, because all it takes is that one encounter for you to be well equipped and ready for the fight. And almost, I think every frag that dooi really got there was close range. There was normally a ball rush involved, and it was mostly super shotgun. You know what I mean? Like, it was this game of keeping control, maintaining it right there, wrong part of town. That's what Scale Bearer wants. And he has so much stack left, he can continue to establish himself. I mean, DaHanG gave him one hell of a fight, but dooi playing the long game, as he always does. And that is why we don't always get to see dooi pick Scale Bearer. It's a very popular champion for people to ban away from him, and that's why.
Absolutely, and I do think that maybe DaHanG just in the second
right
half
there.
of the game. Yeah, off you go. Hoping we would get to see that from DaHanG's point of view as well, but it looks like it's only going to be from doooi's end. Look at that slow play. I do feel like DaHanG in the final few minutes perhaps wasn't as cautious as he needed to be. Towards the beginning of the game, he was basically checking every corner, it felt like, playing a very careful, passive game, knowing what dooi could do to him. But then all of a sudden, he was starting to jump around these corners somewhat blindly, just running the speed that the straw awards you, and dooi made excellent advantage of that. So perhaps something to keep in mind for DaHanG, as we are going to get into the next map. This will be, of course, Awoken, where we're going to see dooi play the Ranger versus DaHanG on the Doomslayer.
Now, the thing is, in the nature of Quake Pro League, and the way the veto works and stuff like that, you only get Scale Bearer once if you're dooi. So that victory there, I think of all champions he could have used to play that exact way, Scale Bearer was kind of the only champion that would have allowed that specific strategy to work out. You know what I mean? Like, looking at the replays, every single frag was close range, super shotgun, ball rush. And it was thanks to doooi's positioning and patience that allowed that to kind of be there. But now he doesn't have Scale Bearer. He's not going to be able to do that kind of play style, I suppose. As we now go into Awoken, things get a bit more conventional. Doomslayer for the double jump, Ranger for the mobility and the orb, as we expect. But I think if there was one map that dooi was going to win against DaHanG, I strongly think it was map 1, for that reason.
I fully agree. You've mentioned it yourself several times. dooi is so well known for his Scale Bearer abilities. Now he doesn't have the champion. Still, of course, Ranger, extremely powerful. Another champion that works well and nicely for doooi's playstyle, because, of course, 1, you've got that burst damage, same with Scale Bearer, and 2, you've got an avenue of escape, getting out of tricky situations very quickly. So this still kind of matches up with doooi's playstyle, although perhaps not as much. And we're starting things off on doooi's perspective. Nice little railgun to open things up.
I gotta say, maybe it is the fighting game player in me, but I think my favorite thing about watching duels in Quake Champions is how many players are starting to really put their identity into 1 or 2 champions. Like, I definitely compared doooi's Scale Bearer with, like, his likeness of how he approaches this game to, like, a Razy Clutch. Like, that's how much identity I think Scale Bearer has on dooi, and it's sick every time you see it in a map. Anyway, moving on, as DaHanG does get that first frag all the same. And he has a good amount of stack to work with. Oh. Maybe not so much now that rail collided, though. And DaHanG doesn't have a rail to work with, so this might be a bit of a challenging survival situation. Maybe not.
Also, yeah, DaHanG also out of rockets for the time being. All he's got is really that LG and that heavy machine gun. Doesn't have much more to work with. Looks like he will be able to safely get to the other side of the map. dooi, he had the right idea of pushing in there. I like the positioning, but DaHanG with the double jump just flew on over. That would have worked against any other champion, basically, except for the Doomslayer.
That's why Doomslayer is, I think, arguably the best champion on this map, or at the very least the most popular, and that's why. That double jump is irreplaceable mobility a lot of the time. Cheeky little nail jump just to put himself back in position towards this Mega. More so just trying to get this information on dooi. And it's very predictable. He's going to be near LG. There's not many other places he could be to stay safe. But DaHanG gets the item all the same, which means timing and control continues. Oh,
Yeah, both players each landing one rail right there. Oh, dooi.
almost got some revenge right there.
Off the map, it seemed like it was a possibility. Nice, DaHanG starting to whip around those rails. Good
How's
push.
that for confidence? You're going, you're not going to teleport. You're just not going to do it. I know you won't. I'm not even going to look away.
Excellent read from the Liquid player in that situation. And of course, using that double jump to perfection. Staying high and clear away from those rockets. And that is one of the strongest aspects of Doomslayer. That double jump is such a powerful repellent to rockets. Also gives you excellent angles for your own rockets to do maximum damage. So DaHanG, using Doom, one of the best and most popular picks on this map. Excellent plays.
From this position, you can see a little bit of a cycle here from DaHanG. You know, he's kind of running a similar circuit just to keep these items taken away from dooi. dooi always struggling, and the objective actually of DaHanG keeping this rail gun away. dooi hasn't had a rail for a very long time, and DaHanG's going to look to keep it that way. If you have a rail and they don't in these situations, what do? dooi can try and, you know, pepper a little bit of LG at you, maybe. Rockets that are just not going to hit because you're too far away. This is a very tricky situation.
DaHanG's positional play is also on point. Keeping control of that center area of the map, knowing that he can jump in and out of there instantly with that Doomslayer double jump, and then he punishes every single move that dooi makes. dooi tries to peek into the Mega Room, rocket to rail combo, 190 damage, back to the drawing board you go. I've got another 30 seconds to work with, there's nothing you can do. This time around though, it does seem like dooi finally gets position on the major item. DaHanG not quick enough to actually push him off of it. Still looking to do more damage before going back around for that heavy. And he do more. Oh no, that's a bait rocket to take. dooi. That's how you reverse control first. Just positioning yourself on Mega first, then a good rocket. When DaHanG is pushing out a bit too far, trying to do some more damage, and then you can steal both of them. Solid play.
More and more we're starting to see players use Berserk simply to disengage a fight, so you could at the very least take these hourglasses. You know what I mean? Like right down here, DaHanG, rare footage of Doomslayer being able to actually pick up some hourglasses and duel. Don't do that every day. But when you know that it's, you know, it can get you that instant speed, and then it means, you know, at the very least, icing on the cake, I think, taking them away. Oh, misses the rail! That would have been a kill shot. A tricky shot to make, granted, but one I think DaHanG would have much rather have hit right there.
Yeah, DaHanG definitely overextending a bit right there. Was expecting to still be able to do some long distance damage on dooi, but dooi had already pushed in so aggressively with that shotgun. By the time DaHanG was able to switch to a different weapon, his stack had been depleted to next to nothing. And now Heavy will be the next major item, and once again dooi, after picking up Mega, has got prime position to steal it away. DaHanG, very aggressive push, perhaps too aggressive. And indeed, it will be dooi closing the gap ever further, Ketchup.
Like dooi's weapon usage, you know that DaHanG's in, and you know that DaHanG's going to use the double jump in the fight, and what does Doomslayer hate? Lightning gun. Looking to keep him away. dooi keeping this lightning gun out. He doesn't spray too hard, though. You needed to make sure he had a little bit of ammo left for when, inevitably, if DaHanG jumped across there to try and take anything, you needed to have the ammo to punish it. Without ammo, that is not a risk. DaHanG barely having a lead right now. Only one frag separating them, and dooi definitely getting some kind of momentum here. Looks like Mega is going to be the first thing to spawn, but not for a while. So what's the next play going to be? dooi gets his orb ready to rock. Looks for a rail angle right as DaHanG's able to escape. Both players don't hit their shot. No damage dealt. Does mean a free little pickup there for Nemesis dooi. That's a cool name for a team right there. Nemesis.
This is just that standard patient dooi playstyle. He knows he's in control, but he's careful not to just throw himself blindly at his opponents. He wants to get the upper hand so he can engage in a situation that he finds to be perfect, where he has calculated the odds and realized that he is going to win that almost every single time. And that time isn't just yet. He wants to do a bit more damage, catch the hangout in a slightly worse positioning, and then he's gonna go for the orb, no dots, bridge the gap, push in aggressively, and finish it off. DaHanG, though, Excellent retaliation right there. Dewey was completely expecting DaHanG to just go through that doorway or that walkway, whatever you want to call it, up at Railgun, but instead DaHanG made a very, very ballsy decision to just drop straight back down with the LG. And that did a lot. Dewey was not prepared for that.
Yeah, and the return fire of the LG completely threw off Dewey's aim too. Was not really planning for it, but he pushes in with a super shotgun all the same. Now Dewey able to tie things up, and remember, Dewey won the first map, as close as it was. So if Dewey's able to get this, there'll be a minimum 2-0, but can he get it? No!
Oh.
DaHanG can't get the damage! The spray of the super shotgun, constantly reminding us that Range is nearly dead because of his death cry, but just not able to get enough pellets to count. If Dewey gets a 2-0 right here on DaHanG, Flea, it's not what I would have expected. I wouldn't have counted it out, but I really thought DaHanG had the advantage. Maybe he still does, but what a display from Dewey this has been so far. Ooh, in and out. And he punishes the downtime. Lovely.
Good read from Dewey, expecting DaHanG to just be waiting there, looking for the angle, and indeed he was. So he just dips in and out, right back into cover, baiting out the shot, and then retaliating in kind. Now he is giving up some of the major items, though. DaHanG has picked up both Heavy and Mega. And Awoken, it's a pretty small map, not that many places to really run to, so this could be tricky for Dewey if he hopes to run down the clock for 2 more minutes. Now he's got positioning on the Mega. DaHanG is just gonna go for it. Good LG. DaHanG is in a bad spot. Beautiful play from Dewey. Oh, he's gonna find him.
Oh, but it doesn't pay out. DaHanG was ready. DaHanG was prepared for that push. It was a brave play there from Dewey, but the thing is, I mean, can you really say you're prepared for that every single time? Taking the armor, the push with the orb? That was risky, yet somehow DaHanG was prepared. The seasoned player, always ready for the unexpected.
That absolutely looked like it was gonna go Dewey's way right there, but he just hadn't done enough damage just yet, and then he orbed on through. DaHanG, as you mentioned, ready, landing an instant rocket, even with a stack advantage. That's gonna hurt. And then Dewey in a bad spot, as he is once more using his ability perfectly right there, getting through the hole in the wall, and picking up Heavy to work with as well. I think we might be looking at our first overtime of the day catch-up. Don't think either player is all too eager to just rush in and secure it with those 40 seconds left.
DaHanG gets a really cute little rail, but now barely not railable himself. Even with the resources, he's likely to soak up around here, getting back up to a bit of a normal stack. Dewey, no orb to play with, and a pretty tricky situation. DaHanG sitting on the high ground, looking for some rails, hits one, but he's very weak himself. Again, for another time, thankfully, Mega is there to take to save his skin, and I think we're going to go into an overtime, but it's an overtime that does not favor Dewey. Far too weak. And DaHanG making chase, looking for the rail, misses the shot. That one will disappoint him a little bit, because he could have got that rail, taken this armor, and just been way healthy. But he gets the call out on the orb. As he stuck, wait a minute, DaHanG getting caught, hits the rail at the last minute. DaHanG wins the second map, but very close indeed.
DaHanG clutching it out at the very end. We've seen this quite frequently recently. I do feel like even though DaHanG has been undefeated so far in this season, there's been quite a few maps, very important, decisive maps, where he was really brought to the very end and then just managed to clutch it out. So DaHanG sticking to his guns right there. Beautiful rail. Dewey, he played those last few minutes nicely, but I do think that DaHanG started having the upper hand when he just started forcing out that orb time and time again in an entirely defensive manner. At no point was Dewey really able to just use that ability in his favor. He was always just trying to get out through the hole in the wall, escaping, getting stuck, and finished off by his opponent. And DaHanG just ended up capitalizing off that.
Well, well, well. How close was that for Dewey almost getting a 2-0? That's the surprising thing to me. Well, I don't want to use the word surprising because it's definitely not fair to use that word, but interesting, I guess, about this whole set is that Dewey, every single time they're playing, he's making it so insanely competitive. And even though the map didn't go his way, he was so insanely close. His style just seems to work exceptionally well against DaHanG. When you watch DaHanG play, I'm used to very dominant maps from DaHanG. I'm used to DaHanG getting control, and that pretty much being a done deal. A very common playstyle from the Liquid Boys for sure, but Dewey's style alone just seems to really put a spanner in the works in that respect. It's so different that it is interesting to see, but now We're going into Battle of the Lights. DaHanG going in with Nyx, which historically is one of his better champions, absolutely. Yeah. And then dooi has the Anarchy to work with. So I think his style, again, we'll see how he approaches this map, because he's got that mobility, but he's also got the injection, keeping him alive a little bit longer. I wonder how much of an impact that might make.
I mean, I've made the comparison in the past. The Liquid boys, they're like diesel engines, right? Once they get going, typically in that second half of the game, and they really build their momentum, there's almost nothing that you can do against it. But dooi, his playstyle actually works as a very nice counter to that. And I also think that that could very well work with these next two champions, because dooi, he will be playing the Anarchy, incredibly mobile, has got that air control, and also, of course, the injection. When he takes too much damage, he can heal himself right back up and get back into the fight. So I think that DaHanG is going to have quite a bit of trouble getting like a solid, dominant control over his opponent.
I don't know how to call this one. I still feel like DaHanG has... Again, I'm not going to change my prediction, because it would be, kind of whack to change a prediction halfway through. But you know what? I think DaHanG still has the edge here. But what I do expect is another close map. Not to curse it. Commentary curse is a real thing, but I do think this has absolute potential to go the distance, maybe even an overtime. We'll just see how the first few minutes go, I guess.
Absolutely. I'm going to stick with my prediction as well. Maybe I'll change it with 10 seconds to go. I'll be like, I think I predict this will be DaHanG.
It'll be 8-0 to dooi. Yeah. I think, I really think dooi has the edge here. I'm going to change it. 2-1.
Now, we're not going to go ahead and do that. I do think that DaHanG probably is still looking better just because of his consistency. But dooi has clearly shown us
here we go.
That he can do something to stop the man from Liquid.
Now, it looks like we're checking things out from dooi's point of view first. He just chucking so much plasma right there, just to start things off. And right now, it's just to create any kind of bonus damage that can exist. Likely to get a rail now, though, at least. Oh, he misses the nail jump. That's a bit unfortunate, actually, because it's going to take him not only time to go and get the rail, but he had to give himself up vulnerable to that rail position. And he hasn't even been able to take it. That's a feels bad man moment right there.
Absolutely. dooi using the heavy machine gun versus that LG. Doesn't have rockets, doesn't have rail, and DaHanG knows this. DaHanG trying to deny his opponent the weapons. Here we go. dooi will finally get himself a rocket to work with. But in doing so, he's given up footing on the Mega. And that should allow DaHanG to at least pick up this item. Loving the decision from DaHanG here, going for more damage first. Liquid player is acutely aware of the fact that that item is sitting up behind him, and he knows that he's got more to gain from it if he just peeks out and tries to do a little bit of damage. And then, if things end up going bad, he can fall back on it. dooi dodging rockets left and right, a railgun as well. DaHanG will finally connect at least something. Oh, messing up the jump right there. dooi just wanted to go straight for Catwalk onto Mega. Couldn't quite make it.
What?
Oh, okay.
He swapped that so quick, I barely saw him even go rail right there. That was a quick little turnaround with the Nemesis lad taking that first. Oh, and before DaHanG even has a chance to save his skin. Takes a lot more damage than he would have wanted to. Sets up the rail. Doesn't quite manage to hit the shots. Both of those shots would have been really important for him. And he just can't hit it. The second one's good. Now, with 32 health, a whole bunch of armor, and the fact that injection is just about to return. dooi's in pretty good form to make chase.
dooi is missing so many of these important shots.
Yeah,
like, they're not easy shots, don't get me wrong, but they're also not particularly difficult. He should be hitting those. If he had landed a few of those shots, he would be up 3-0 already. And unfortunately for him, he couldn't quite deliver. And now DaHanG managed to get a pretty decent base stack to work with. dooi has got the rotation on the items, but DaHanG, we saw this very clearly on Molten Falls. So capable of just suddenly cementing himself between his opponent and the item when dooi wouldn't expect it, and then doing a tremendous amount of damage.
Gonna pop the injection, I think, just to try and sort out that Ghost Walk that was used to escape. Doesn't want to be immediately caught by that reappear. Especially if you're one of these smaller champions, even if you're Anarchy. I like that use of the injection just to max out your stack, get that speed. Looking for these rails. These rails always hit tricky to land on Nyx, but dooi not really hitting any rails at all on this map. It's causing him some real trouble. 25%. He's fired 9 shots, and only 2 of them have actually hit their mark. Swiftly undone there by DaHanG at least, but DaHanG equalized 1-1.
Yeah, the railgun accuracy, I pointed it out earlier. Dooi missing some crucial shots that DaHanG does end up connecting. And that is allowing the Liquid player to tie things right back up. There we go, Dooi. Starting to land some shots of his own. That's looking good. It's gotta be careful though. Tribal, so powerful! Tribaled into rail combo kill. Not something you see every day, catch up, but DaHanG makes it work.
Dooi having a hard time hitting these rails. You sometimes see so many amazing shots in Quake Pro League, you forget that Nyx is historically very hard to hit with rails for most of us. One of those lighter champs, but it's how you make do with the hand you've been dealt, Dooi. If he's not hitting amazing rails, do you start to continue with the rail? Maybe kind of tighten things up a little bit, or do you just start using different weapons? You have a lot of time to make this decision, but as Dooi gets caught on the retreat by, gotta say, some very good rails from DaHanG, that's the worst kind of combination when you're not hitting a lot of rails, but your opponent is. It's like, okay, well, they're gonna get free damage on me then.
Dooi has started to turn things around a bit though, currently sitting at 41% rail. Nice bit of vertical LG as well, pinning DaHanG up in the air for a moment. Of course, the Nyx had too much momentum to just be completely frozen, but a good attempt from Dooi nevertheless. Heavy is up. And it will be DaHanG to deal a good amount of damage and secure the item as well.
Getting some good damage on the opening as well, DaHanG. The important thing is keeping this control as Mega, once again, is about to appear. Huge delay between the two, so DaHanG's absolutely going to be able to push forward towards this heavy. That's why Dewey's in position for it first. He just doesn't want to have to concede it. Hasn't got a rail again, though. But a common problem.
I'm surprised that DaHanG hasn't called a technical timeout, because he seems to have an issue with his mouse. Ketchup, he's zooming in. Look at this. DaHanG is zooming in. This is truly unheard of, clearly unintentional, but it's working out for him quite nicely.
I saw a zoomed-in mouse and I saw a miss, and that's why he doesn't do it.
There, sample size of 1, it has been proven. DaHanG let go of that zoom, although he's got that 1 frag lead. Dooi knows that he's still got plenty of time, 4 minutes to work with, doesn't have to rush or put himself in any dangerous situations just yet, as he drops on down the rockets. They're gonna hurt Dooi. Can he get out alive? Looks like DaHanG won't even chase. Knows he's got the advantage.
No resources, Dooi, not even the light armor down there, so not really sure what he's going to do for armor, considering that, I mean, there's the light up there, but it's a bit predictable if it's the only one that's left. At last, the light's actually going to appear, giving Dooi a fighting chance, but it's like I said, you play for that 1 frag, you play for that 1 little bit in the scoreline, and Dooi, all the time that's left, that's a lifetime for a single frag, especially when you have mobility that can go a lot faster than Nyx can. The danger is that DaHanG's Ghost Walk management has been phenomenal. The second it looks like Dooi has the edge, that Ghost Walk gets popped and the fight is over. And speaking of the fight being over, DaHanG secures another, because he had way too much stack. No way Dooi was going to be able to put a dent in that one.
Bit too early from Dooi as well. If he had showed up 2 seconds later, could have picked up Mega, might have been able to change the outcome. But indeed, as you mentioned, excellent use of the Ghost Walk. Nice little bait right there from DaHanG. Pretending to go around the corner, Dooi jumps in. Heavy nails into rockets, tremendous amount of damage. That definitely is one of the things that DaHanG does extremely well, using that Ghost Walk. There's so many players who hang on to that Ghost Walk into a fight, and then they pop it when they're this close to dying, and they can just barely get away by the skin of their teeth. If you do that, you will be left with so many issues to try and get back into it, to get all those resources back, and giving your opponent free reign of the map, if you can even escape. So DaHanG uses it the moment he senses danger to just avoid taking that damage in the first place.
As DaHanG continues to just play this game of strong position. It's all about those rails that just create such a headache for Dooi in this situation now. 4 frags for DaHanG. And we're talking about playing, you know, for the singular frag and having always time to bring it back. That isn't really becoming a thing anymore, as DaHanG just extends this lead, hits these annoying defensive shots that just create an impossible situation for Dooi to really push. And now with 2 minutes on the clock and 3 frags to go against DaHanG, who's definitely feeling the momentum right now, I think it's a tall order. We'll see if he can do it.
Dooi absolutely has to let go of that favorite playstyle of his. He cannot keep waiting for the right time to push. He's got to start applying pressure right here, right now, but DaHanG just keeps on landing so many of these rail shots, currently at 50% rail. It's crazy to see that more than half of DaHanG's damage has been railgun. He's done 1.6k damage with the rail alone. DaHanG has done more damage with rail than dooi has done with every single weapon combined. Ketchup, that is how dominant
Oh my god.
the railgun has been.
You're right. 1,736 rail versus dooi's only just been able to get like a little bit more, actually. I was going to count it up, but then he hit a rail, so never mind.
Yeah.
But that is insane. But always kind of a sign of dominance, though. dooi lands a rail. Now, wait a minute. Light champion spawning. No armor. Ghost Walk is down.
Good rail.
dooi, he's making it happen. 55 seconds for this. He's able to get himself some armor too. And DaHanG does not have the Ghost Walk. It's going to become even harder seeing as dooi now has the hourglasses. But wait, DaHanG opting to just hide, and that's, yeah, sneaky boy. All right.
doooi's gonna find him, but he still needs to do the damage as well. DaHanG locking down these choke points, and dooi jumping down, coming right back up. DaHanG, can he get out alive?
Shot. No, that's it. That rail needed to land for dooi to stay alive in the fight, and it just didn't hit its mark. 3 frags left. The fact that DaHanG now has his Ghost Walk, which is about 5 seconds wasted. There it is. dooi weak. And that was GG's right there. DaHanG. Heartbreaking for dooi not to hit that rail, but it was a hard shot.
He didn't even need the rail. Any half-decent shotty would have done the 60 damage necessary to finish off DaHanG, or maybe a bit of LG as well.
I wonder if he was a little bit doubtful.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe he just wasn't expecting DaHanG to just still be hanging around there. Maybe he thought that DaHanG had already made his way up, tried to escape from the top, and he was just looking for an exit rail, but DaHanG was still hanging around right there, and dooi just unable to close it out. Really close series once again, but it will be Liquid DaHanG securing himself the victory, and dooi, another loss, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially considering how close it was. That's what I think is so upsetting for dooi fans out there, is the fact that it was so close. I mean, I hate to be the master of hindsight, but as a commentator, it's my job. Like the second map, the closing moments of Awoken, how insanely close we were to that being a 2-0 for dooi. We were a couple of frags, 2 separate fights that were this close to going his way. He brought it that down to the wire, but ultimately didn't lead to an overall victory. DaHanG continuing to look strong, and dooi's playstyle, if there's anything to go from this, it's that dooi's playstyle can bring it to some of the absolute best in Americas. So I do want to continue to see the refinement of this, because we even down to certain champions, like the highlight map for him was the Scale Bearer map, because it really emphasized how his style can work with the right champion behind the wheel. But we'll see if it's going to become a bit more rock solid, or whether it does depend so heavily on champions to work.
I do think that this is promising for dooi. Even though he ended up losing, clearly there is so much potential. And as I mentioned, as we started off this series, he's been working on some of the fundamentals of his game, knowing very well that he's still got a lot of room to grow. He definitely can still improve, and if he can already make things this close against a player, an opponent of DaHanG's caliber, then the sky's the limit for dooi.
Well, that does mean that dooi versus DaHanG is going to come to a close on our next match. Toxic versus Cypher. That always promises to be a good match, doesn't it? Tox and Cypher.
Absolutely, 2 of the biggest names in all of Quake history. Toxic, without a doubt, the greatest Quake 4 player to grace us, and Cypher, I mean, the man is an absolute legend for his accomplishments in that rivalry that he had against Rafa quite a few years ago. So 2 veterans, 2 titans of the scene going up against each other. I think that everyone is going to be excited to see both of these play. Both of them, though, have been a little shaky recently. We constantly see these signs of brilliance, but some days they just aren't able to close it out, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes today.
Well, we'll find out what that shape will be as we're going to jump into a break and set up the lobby. You're watching Week 4 of Season 2 of the Quake Pro League. Back in a few minutes' time. Don't go anywhere.